Yo, what is really good, my dudes? Today is Monday, June 3rd, 2019. We got another RuneScape update for y'all. We got details regarding a weapon diversity beta coming up right around the corner, tomorrow in fact. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the video. Let's go.
Cats is the illest. What you talking about, Willis?
Before I get started, forgive me if I sound a little weird. I've been fighting the flu for a week now. Finally starting to see myself get better, so bear with me. Anyways, the weapon diversity beta is coming out tomorrow. That is June 4th. Basically, if you don't know, a bunch of weapon types are going to have special attributes to each type that'll make them unique to that class of weapon or that spell type or that ammo use. And we'll get into the very different intricacies about it in a second. But if you're curious about how to join the beta, again, it'll start on the 4th and it'll run for an entire month. Once it's live, the news post that we're going over right now will be updated with a link that you can click, and then you'll be able to access the beta there. I will have a link to this news post, so if you're watching this tomorrow maybe, then obviously the link will be able to take you to the beta itself, so head over there. So what should you expect with this beta? As I said, it will run for a month and they'll be collecting feedback and rolling out changes as they go along. Keep in mind there's nothing set in stone at this point and it all depends on player feedback. In the beta you'll be able to try out 16 different changes and their new effects. It's important to note that you'll be able to try out tier 92 sample versions of weapons. These have been added to the trade option on Lady Deathnell at the Combat Academy. Additionally, you can create your own Combat Academy instance with her, allowing you to practice on your own set of training dummy. That being said, let's look at the various different weapon types and what their effects will be. Starting off with melee, for daggers you have a chance to hit a second time with every attack. Dual wielding will mean that you'll have a chance of hitting with both your weapons additionally. This will hit for auto damage and the current chance is at 5%. For spears, it has the effect of all of your bleeds lasting 50% longer. This applies to slaughter, blood, tendrils, and dismember. For scimitars, if you hit a critical hit, 5% or 10 if you have two scimitars will then be added as a damage over time effect in addition to your initial damage over the course of 7.2 seconds. If you crit again within this time, it resets and adds to the original pool of damage. Two-hander swords have the ability to heal you for a percent based on your critical hit damage. 5% of your crits will be applied immediately as instant health. For maces, you have a 200% of your entire prayer bonus added to your strength bonus. This is increased to 300% if you have two maces. Moving on to mauls. Mauls have less precision but more damage. So every maul will have 5 tiers extra damage but 5 tiers less accuracy. So for example, if you have a tier 90 maul, it will have an accuracy of 85 weapons but have damage of 95 weapons. Moving on to the ranged weapon changes. For short bows, the closer you are to a target, the more increased damage you have, up to an additional 6% damage at melee range. It drops off to be a regular base 100% damage at 7 tiles away, increasing 1% for every tile closer. Moving on to shield bows, they cut the cost of defense abilities by 20%, meaning you will only need 40% adrenaline to do any defensive thresholds, and you'll only need 80% adrenaline to do any defensive ultimates. Moving on to one-handed crossbows, this is basically the dagger of range. So you have a 2% chance while using a basic ability to use the same basic ability at the same time or one tick after. This will not generate any extra adrenaline or incur a global cooldown in the action bar. Moving on to the two-handed crossbow, this gains increased accuracy if you remain still. After standing still for at least 3 seconds, you get a 5% accuracy buff. This has no timer, but if you do move, will only last for 5 more seconds. If you stand still again for another 3 seconds, you reapply the buff. Moving on to throwing knives, these will have lower base damage and accuracy than other weapon types of their tier, but it knocks off 1 tick from the global cooldown. So this means it'll have 5 less levels in damage and accuracy, but the global cooldown will only be 1.2 seconds as opposed to 1.8. Moving on to throwing axes. Throwing axes will gain additional adrenaline for your auto attacks. Currently, you get 2% adrenaline for an auto attack of your main weapon, 1% for offhand. With throwing axes, they'll be increased to 4% and 2% respectively. Moving on to the magic skill. For air spells, when you hit a target with air, you gain a stack that increases your armor by 1%. This can stack up to 10% and lasts for 10 seconds. When using a fire spell, you have a 5% chance while hitting anything to apply a second combust, which acts identical to the current combust spell. This can be applied at the same time as combust, which means that any other ability that affects combust, like the invention perk lunging, also affects this ability. If it triggers again before it expires, it refreshes the duration back to full. The second combust should have a different name and distinguishable debuff icon on the target. Water spells? Using water spells, when you deliver a finishing blow, will spawn a water globule where the target died. If you walk over this, you gain 2% of your max health. And finally, earth spells. While your target is stunned or bound, you will deal 20% more damage to them. And that is all the planned changes for the weapon diversity. Again, that's going to last for a month starting tomorrow at the time of this video. Link to the news post, which takes you straight to the beta, will be down in the description below, so head on over there to do so. With that, we're going to switch over to the patch notes and see exactly what has been changed there. So let's go ahead and check it out. You will no longer see a stockpiled message if your chest hits the item limit when 2 more items fill it. Quick check message for Sack of Effigies and Backstab Cake have been corrected. You can no longer attune the Avatar Control Stone in another clan citadel. The assassin during the temple at Sentistin quest has been relocated next to the correct winch. An issue with an additional Legacy TLI action bar appearing when opening the world map has been fixed. Monster Examine now gives XP and play an animation each time it's casted. Robust Glass once again defaults to crafting potion flasks instead of ogre flasks. Added a toggle for the color overlay when skills are boosted or drained on skills tab. Allowed the buff bar to display values of 0%. Improved the messaging on Wilderness Slayer task streaks to denote when you'll start earning Slayer points. The bank cleanup filter will now display items that can be stored on the quest storage chest. It's now possible to set the distance of your currently equipped weapon as the maximum target distance. Boss loot items have been centralized to maintain consistency. Players now have a significant improved chance of obtaining the Slayer skill pet from squishing scarabs in Menaphos. The message to say if a drop inside an elite dungeon was doubled is no longer filtered. Having Clean Marintil and Haralander potion unfinished in your inventory will now default to Guthix Rest 3 in the Make X screen if you mix them together. The Don't Ask Me Again option for Curadel's special Slayer challenge now correctly checks the appropriate variable when cycling through getting Slayer tasks. Off means off now. Players can now use Protean logs on the Odd Old Man's fire to aid polishing bones. Stopped buckets from being removed when making chocolate or strawberry cream cheese. Clicking the Make X option on a vial of coconut milk will now default to make weapon poison rather than more coconut milk. Effectively, you can now put the lime in the coconut. Fixed an issue in Rum Deal where having an extra bucket of stagnant water would not allow the player to deposit the fever spider body in the hopper. Fixed an issue the player on farm tutorial where some NPC names were incorrect and chat heads were missing. Removed the members only tag from Sanu in the cooking skill guide. And finally added the ability to buy the Barbarian Assault reward gamble points 10 and 5 times for both high and low items. And that is it for your patch notes. Links to everything discussed in this video will be down in the description below. If you want to head on over there to check it out, go do so. With that, I'm gonna wrap up the video, and if you enjoyed it, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed and you want to stay up to date on all things RuneScape related, then hit that subscribe button. Anyways, I appreciate you watching. I am out. Peace.